What's going down, D-Gens? It's AG Sports back again, coming again with more reviews, right? More book data, basically reading so you don't have to. So, a couple things we're going to start off with. Number one, please like, subscribe, comment, whatever you need to do. Hijack another person's YouTube, give me more likes and subs and all that kind of stuff, right? Number two, please take a look at the affiliates. Especially, again, I cannot stress this enough. If you do not have a book that you are using for the preseason games, please look at the two affiliates that are linked below. It is going to be mybookie.com and GTBets. Both of them are great. I use them for different things. I do suggest you have as many books as possible. So even if you do have a bookie already or a book that you're using online or whatever it may be, I suggest having as many open as possible. You don't have to deposit into every single one, but just to kind of get a look at what each book can give you and kind of specialize in. I think I broke this down in the last video, but I chose these two specifically because my bookie is typically the early mover. They are almost a line creator. If they aren't, I'd be kind of surprised. That is the line that you should be looking at, or the book you should be looking at, if you want to get something at the open, right? So if it's like a game that you're waiting on and there's no line on it yet, that's going to be one of the first places to show up with a line. I will tell you, it is a little bit of a sharper book though. So they are faster to move with the lines. And if you've missed your entry point already and it's already been like a day or a couple hours or whatever it is, that line has probably moved. That is where GT Bets comes in. GT Bets is the slower mover. They're also the slower line poster. So once we get into full swing here, like week 3, 4, 5 of the NFL season, mybookie.com is going to be putting up lines for you very, very early, Sunday night, Monday morning at the very latest. GT Bets a lot of times won't have the lines up until Monday morning. And I mean actual morning, like 6, 7, 8 a.m., 9 a.m., whereas my bookie will have a lot of stuff come out like 10, 11 p.m. Sunday night. So keep that in mind. It is good because on the reverse side of that, obviously, with GT Bets, if the line has moved, if it's already been a day, you can still go there. And typically, if the line's moved a couple points, you'll at least get a half a point to a full point still kind of on the other side of that. So it's good for that reason. They both have new member bonuses, and they both have retaining member bonuses. So if you are already a member at 1 or 2, still advise you to click the link below because GT Bets is offering 50% bonus with just a 5 times rollover. MyBookie.com is giving anywhere from a 50 to 100% bonus, depending on if you've used it before. Theirs is anywhere from 6 to a 10 times rollover, so it's a little bit more, but still not unreasonable. I know there are some books out there that ask for like a 30 times rollover, and that's just not going to work. So anyways, enough of that. That's my ad for the day, but let's go on and get into it. What we're going to talk about today is 8 more teams that we are reviewing from the Warren Sharp book. If you are looking at your screen, you will see the Miami Dolphins are being displayed. That's right. We are going to talk about the Miami Dolphins as one of the teams today. We're not going to start with them, but I figured it'd be good to at least show you a little bit of what's in the book. I'm not giving away everything. I just want to give you at least a little taste of how the graphs look, where I'm getting this information from, and kind of how in-depth this book goes if you decide to buy it yourself. That I'm not getting paid for, but I do want to let you know it's out there and it is very helpful. So, Chargers are the team we're going to start off with. Chargers last year suffered a lot of injury issues. If you don't remember, Herbert, I believe it was week 2, broke his ribs and played through them several weeks into the season. I believe it's not until like week 10 that he was actually like okay again. So about 2 months of just being kind of banged up, not really being able to move as well as he should. Aside from that, the coaching staff didn't really help a whole lot, if any. Staley is a good coach, and I like him, and I think he's fine, but he is a defensive-minded coach, and you can tell by the money that they are spending and where they're spending their money, the Chargers have spent a lot of it on the defensive side of the ball. They are, I believe, a top 10 or maybe even a top 5 spending team on the defensive side of the ball, but the last 2 years they've been getting bottom 3 production in defense. So that really hurts from the team aspect of things, not fantasy, not betting, just strictly actually on the field football, you're putting a lot of resources behind the defense and you're just not getting the production that you're hoping for. Now, coming into this year, hopefully we have a lot better injury luck. Obviously, I just mentioned Herbert because he's a quarterback. He's the star player. Keenan Allen was lost for the majority of the first part of the year. Mike Williams missed some time last year. It just kind of was a rotating door of injuries. So hopefully that clears up a little bit this year, and it makes them just a little bit better. Obviously, they did go into the playoffs last year. They lost in the first round. But if they can get something a little bit more sustained, maybe have a little bit of a better record, we should see some increase from them. One thing that really stood out, and this is directly from the book, is that Justin Herbert performs really well in 12 personnel, specifically when they are using play action. So when they use play action from that 12 personnel, and again, that's one running back, two tight ends, when play action is used from that personnel, he is throwing at a positive 0.30 EPA, which is expected points added per pass. So anything positive is good, but obviously the higher the better, and 0.3 is actually pretty good. Most runs are negative, and if they are positive, it's usually like 0.1, 0.05 as far as runs are concerned. A lot of quarterback passes are really between like a 0.1 and a 0.2, so to be at a 0.3 is really, really good. Now, Herbert, as you probably know already, is an elite quarterback. He has great numbers, and I'm just talking about his expected points added per pass. But honestly, in all of the metrics, he's above average to elite on just about every single thing. Really, this year, just like last year, and unfortunately probably the year before that, the only thing holding them back is going to be injuries and coaching. Now, Anthony Lynn was just the worst. I'm not sure why he even got a job at that point. But Staley has been good for this team. And there is some things he can work on as far as basically running more of that 12 personnel, especially with play action, kind of leaning a little bit more into where they are efficient, leaning more into where Justin Herbert likes to go with the ball and how he likes to feel protected. And I do think Kellen Moore is going to help out quite a bit with that. Kellen Moore, top 4 offensive coordinator the last 2 years. I'm not sure why the Cowboys let him go. Probably because Mike McCarthy's an idiot. But that's besides the point. Now he's with the Chargers. I think you are going to see a faster offense, a more explosive offense, a more downfield passing offense. And the one big knock on this team as far as actual play calling last year was that it just was not explosive. It was a lot of short underneath stuff, a lot of Austin Eckler passes, a lot of behind the line of scrimmage passes. Kellen Moore is going to fix that this year, I can almost guarantee you. And as long as they let him work and do what he's supposed to do and don't try to put the reins on him the way Mike McCarthy did, that Chargers team is going to look really, really good. So again, this year is going to come down coaching and health, and the Chargers will go as far as those two things can take them. Next is going to be the Rams. Now, the Rams have one huge glaring issue, and it just kind of screams like a rebuild to me and pretty much anybody else that's looking at this. As far as spending goes, right, actual dollars and cents, they went from spending the 7th most money on defense last year to now spending my system here cut out for a second. But anyways, they went from spending the 7th most on defense to the 32nd most on defense, also known as the absolute least amount of money on defense in the entire NFL. Offensively, they went from spending the first or the most money on offense down to the 25th least expensive offense. So 2 huge drops in one offseason, just huge change. So the fact that they're trying to save so much money and kind of let go of any loose ends and things like that tells me that this is really and truly a rebuild season for the Rams. They do have some star players, obviously, like Stafford and Kupp and Aaron Donald. But outside of those 3 guys, there's really not a whole lot of depth. They did let go of Jalen Ramsey, and I don't really see them having a whole lot to work with this year. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have a couple of wins, a couple good games, put up some decent stats. Cam Akers, does what he's expected to do. But outside of that, I don't really see them being much of a contender. They sold all out to win their one Super Bowl. They won it. They're paying the price. It's the way it works. A little bit more in depth, though, on some of the figures with them. So the offense was statistically better from week 10 onward, which is really when Stafford and Kupp started missing time. So that's not a great sign, but it also could be that Sean McVay was kind of letting go of the reins a little bit there. In 2021, Stafford played amazing. He's actually the best quarterback against man defenses. In 2022, which was last year, Stafford ranked 45th out of 47 quarterbacks against man defense. So a huge drop down in production there. Now, I'm not really sure why that is. If it was just, injuries, again, the injuries didn't happen until week 10, 11 for Stafford and Kupp respectively. So I'm not really sure why we saw such a decline in Stafford's play. But aside from that, in 2022, which is, again, last year, we saw that pre-snap motion had a huge, huge impact on their offense. So when they ran with pre-snap motion, Stafford was able to deliver a positive 0.45 EPA. That's huge. Like I said, most quarterbacks, it's like between 0.1 and 0.2. The fact that he was able to more than double that with pre-snap motion is huge. When they didn't run with pre-snap motion, though, it was the exact opposite. It was negative 0.45. So that's a huge drop, obviously, something that can be easily changed just with simple play calling. A lot of times the quarterback loves pre-snap motion because it makes the defense tell you quite a bit about what they're running. Are they running with the man defense? Are they going to do zone? Are they shading one way or the other? Are they going to pass off your, the guy in motion? Gives you a lot of different details about that defense, so I can see why it would help him so much. And the fact that they didn't do it at a very high rate last year really impacted him. Aside from that, though, Stafford's yard per attempt has decreased from 8.3 to 6.1 when he doesn't use the pre-snap motion. So again, more than 2 yards difference when he doesn't use the pre-snap motion, and his success rate dropped 10% without the pre-snap. So one little minute detail that you may not think very much about that made a huge impact on the team. This year, hopefully McVay sees that. I don't see how he wouldn't. And they run some more pre-snap motion. They're going to have to do it with guys like Van Jefferson this year, which serviceable, but we'll see how much they can get out of him. Cooper Kupp obviously still being the star receiver there. They do have a tough schedule, though, this year. They're going to play 5 different games with rest disadvantage spots, meaning that their opponent has more time to prepare for them. Obviously, they're spending a lot less money, like we started off this conversation with, and they're going to need to have some luck go their way because there's really only one major adjustment that had a big impact on this offense last year, which was that pre-snap motion. And who knows if that's going to be sustainable once they've done it for a week or two. Defenses may start to kind of catch on. I don't think so, but it's always a possibility. So that's the breakdown on the Rams. Really not expecting much out of them. Hopefully like a 500 season. I could see it being still, again, less than that because it is a true rebuild, especially if they have anybody get injured, especially if it's like Kupp or Stafford. This team is not going to go anywhere. They do play in a subpar, I guess, division with the Cardinals. So that should be 2 wins that they can get there as long as they're at least half-ass healthy. Number 3, this is going to be the Dolphins. This is what I came here to talk about. This Dolphins team is really, truly amazing. And I knew that they were good last year, but I had not dug into all the stats, especially not as far as this book goes into detail. The strategy is really what I want to start off with. McDaniel just did an amazing job. The only thing that really kept this team back was health, and that's Tua's health specifically. The Dolphins, in the 11 games they played with Tua, they were 8-3. At one point in the season, they were 8-1 when Tua was healthy. So to finish 8-3 and the 3 games coming against really, really tough opponents. I know one of them for sure was the Bills, and I believe another was against the Eagles. But to lose 3 games, and all 3 of the teams ended up being playoff teams. The Chiefs, that was the other third team. Really just speaks volumes. to how great this Dolphins team is. But aside from that, when they didn't have Tua, they went 1-6. So 8-3 with Tua, 1-6 without him. Huge discrepancy depending on Tua's health. And that, again, is really what it's going to come down to this year. Now, Tua did show this huge improvement from 2021 to 2022, and he's actually just efficient in every single thing, but specifically the top three are the most important three stats, which is yards per attempt, expected points added, and success rate. So he's top 5 player in all three of those categories. And like I said earlier, the only real struggle they had was keeping this guy upright. So if he can stay healthy this year, the offense is going to be flying. It's going to be just fine. There's nothing really to change that needs to be changed other than maybe some in-game adjustments when the defenses have a little bit more tape on them this year, maybe play them a little bit differently. But that offense is not going anywhere, especially with guys like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. They're still going to be great. The defensive side of the ball was a little bit of an issue. They did have great personnel, but just really weren't getting the production that they wanted. So they did bring in Vic Fangio this year as a defensive coordinator. The last time that this guy had a defense was back in Denver. They were the number 5 defense, specifically the number 5 red zone defense. And that's exactly where the Dolphins struggled last year. So the Dolphins in red zone and on third down, their defense both ranked in the bottom 10 in those two particular areas. Vic Fangio, that's almost exactly where he improves defenses the most. So Fangio should clean that up, and you're going to end up cleaning up one of the very few weak spots that this team has. Last year, they also didn't really get anything to go their way as far as quote unquote luck is concerned. They ended up finishing 25th in fumble luck, 23rd in field goal luck, and 11th worst injury luck. Lastly, they also had a negative 27 penalty margin. So just so you know what the hell I'm talking about when I say luck, 25th in fumble luck. I think I just said this last time, but recovering a fumble isn't really a skill necessarily, other than knowing how to fall. It's more, where does the ball go when it hits the ground, and who do you have around it? So it is like quote unquote luck. So 25th worst means that they should have, given where the ball landed and all that kind of stuff, recovered a few more fumbles than they really did. 23rd in field goal luck means that opponents were hitting some shots from further than the statistics or data says they should have been able to hit them, and they were missing some field goals that they should have made. Negative 27 penalty margin just means they had more penalties, 27 more penalties than their opponents did. So all three of those things went against them, and they still had a great year, going 9-8 at the end of the year. This should not be anything different. If anything, we should just expect to see more improvement from this Dolphins team. If you're looking at them for maybe like a fantasy play as well, I actually like Tua. Tua's going really late in fantasy drafts right now. I'm not really sure why, but if you can get this guy in the 7th round and he's able to stay healthy, you have a legit number 1 quarterback, or top 12 quarterback, that is, if you're playing a 12-team league, with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, that you're getting later and later in the draft. So, again, aside from health, there's not really anything else to worry about here. But let's move on. Next is the Vikings. The Vikings did go 11-0 in one-score games. I've talked a lot about this already, but they had great fourth quarters, which is awesome. That's how they won so many games, going 13. I believe it's 13-4 that they went last year. But in most games, they were actually losing after the third quarter. So in 10 games that they played, 10 out of 17, obviously, they were losing at the end of the third quarter. They did set a record-breaking pace for fourth quarter point margin. So they were just exploding in the fourth quarter, blowing out teams. I believe it was like a plus 121 points that they were in the fourth quarter compared to their opponents. So they won all these games because of these great fourth quarters. They go 11-0 in one-score games. That all sounds great. It's all also due for regression, right? At some point, those things come back to the mean. The one-score games, I know we've covered it quite a few times on the channel. Most teams are going to go about 500 in one-score games. So for them to go 11-0, it's very, very unlikely that they duplicate that. going just based strictly off of the stats, especially with like one-score games, they really should have been more of like a 7-10, 8-9 kind of team. So they got quite a few wins that statistically shouldn't have been there. They just kind of got on a good roll. They got on a good little heater. More credit to them. They did great, but I don't know how much you can expect that to continue this year. Aside from that, obviously they lose Dalvin Cook. Madison, he is a step backwards, just in efficiency, if nothing else. Dalvin Cook was not going to come out and put up, 2,000 yard season either way, but Madison, aside from, he's also not going to do that. He's just a little bit less efficient, goes down a little bit faster. He doesn't get as far without contact. It's just going to be a little bit of a step. And when you're playing football and that 1 yard's going to matter, Madison's not going to get it for you, and it's going to set you back, and it's going to cause a little bit more stagnancy in the offense. Kirk Cousins also had declining numbers. His numbers have actually declined year after year after year, and he's just not living up to the billing, right? I mean, not that he's supposed to be some all-star, but still, it's just getting worse as he's getting older, and he's got some great weapons, so we really should see improvement, not him continuing to just decline every single year. Now, specifically, he did struggle against the man blitz defense, right? So when you're putting a man defense on his receivers and you're blitzing the shit out of this guy, he has a really hard time seeing the field right. And if you go back and watch the Giants playoff game against the Vikings, you see it's exactly what they did. And that Giants defense, that's really what they love to do regardless of who they're playing, but it worked especially well against the Vikings because they just blitz happy. Kirk Cousins just does not feel comfortable in that pocket with the blitz, doesn't read the right reads, and causes issues. Either his passes are off because they're a little early, or he's trying to get out of the pocket a little early, or he's throwing an interception. So just not a good fit there. I think once defenses see that, and they probably will, because if I'm reading it and it's out in the public, other people are going to know it. You're going to see more defenses play that way, and you're going to see more losses from the Vikings this year because of that. Next, though, let's go ahead and go into the Patriots. The Patriots, really, there's just 3 words that need to be said about last year. Matt Patricia sucks. Repeat it with me. Matt Patricia, whatever, sucks. The Patriots received the highest efficiency improvement in the entire NFL when using play action. Earlier, we mentioned other teams at 0.3 and 0.4. When the Patriots used play action, they actually had a positive 0.49. That's almost a half a point of expected points added when they ran play action. What did Matt Patricia do? He ran play action at the 3rd lowest rate in the league, only 28% of the time. So he wasn't doing anything to help Mac Jones. And honestly, it makes me question if he was even really watching the tape, if he was putting the time in, because something that glaring, if that is your full-time job and you're really supposed to sit there, watch tape, and help your young quarterback develop as much as possible, and you don't see something that obvious and evident, it makes me question how much you were really working on this. Obviously, he's not there anymore. Bill O'Brien hopefully should be helping Mac Jones a little bit more and this entire offense a little bit more by not using play action and by calling runs and being very predictable. Matt Patricia was constantly setting this team up with 3rd and long situations. And when you're in 3rd and long, they still know exactly what you're going to do. So you're still being predictable. You're going to have low expected value plays. And the defense is just, they know exactly how to play you every single down, especially when you're starting off with runs. It's just, that's why it's inefficient, because you're kind of tipping your hand and you're giving the defense the upper hand there. This upcoming year, the Patriots are going to face the 3rd toughest schedule of defenses. Last year, they played the 11th easiest schedule, and they still did not really fare very great. So it's going to get much more difficult this year as far as defenses are concerned. And they also are going to play the number 1 toughest schedule in the NFL, just in general, offensively and defensively. So you're going to have a much harder schedule this year. You really didn't do a whole lot to improve your offensive pieces. Mac Jones hopefully can stay healthy this year. I think you will expect to see some improvement in the efficiencies, player production, all that kind of stuff. Ramondre Stevenson should still be great. They're still going to use him Ty Montgomery really is the only threat to that guy, and Ty Montgomery is really more of a third down back, so it shouldn't be like a goal line issue if you're looking at him for fantasy. But saying all that, I think you'll see the numbers go up for individual players and maybe even for the team as far as like efficiency numbers, but you may not see the wins come with it just because of the tougher defense and offenses that you're going to see them play this year. So next is the Saints. Saints have questions everywhere. If you've been listening to this channel for a little while, you know what I've been saying about this team since like May. They just have questions at every single position. Running back, yes, Alvin Kamara got his like legal portion out of the way. He's most likely still going to be suspended. We just don't know how long, when. Is it going to come down this year? When are they waiting for another hearing? What's going on with that? We don't know. We know another one of the running backs came into camp not healthy. He's not performing yet. They are very, very weak at the offensive guard position. They actually have, I believe it's their right guard, that's rated at like 73. And he's their starting guard. Keep in mind, teams have two guards, and there's already two teams. So 64 top guards, those should be all starting guards. The Saints have a starting guard that is rated outside of that, meaning he should technically be a backup, and they're having to start the year with him. And they did it last year, and it caused a lot of pressure right up the middle on Andy Dalton's right-hand side. Now, as far as the receiver room goes, Olave is awesome. He's great, and if you watch the highlights even, you'll know that he's a step above just your average receiver. Aside from that, though, you have questions on Michael Thomas and really everywhere else on that field. Last year, the Saints ran the sixth lowest rate of 11 personnel. And when you run that low of a rate in 11 personnel, you're going to leave a lot of defenders in the box. So 11 personnel means you have one running back, one running back, one tight end, three receivers. When you have three receivers spread out, those linebackers have to at least kind of honor the pass, honor the underneath routes. Your corners are going to have to be spread out. You're able to kind of spread apart that field a little bit, take everybody out of the running lanes, get them out of the box. When you don't run that personnel very much, everyone's kind of stacked up in the middle, and then you're asking your running backs to go run into that box. So aside from that, which is bad coaching, right? That's what we try to focus on here, and that's the whole point of this channel. Aside from that, though, just the personnel that's there, Kamara has actually gotten worse every single year for the last 4 years straight. Just everywhere. His expected points per attempt, his yards per carry, yards after contact, that's all gotten worse every year for the last 4 years. They bring in Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams is great on the goal line, but for whatever reason, outside of the red zone, he really struggles against stacked boxes. He's like a bottom 10 player when he goes into stacked boxes. So unless this offense changes, like the groupings that they're going to be using and how they're running, you're not going to see a lot of explosive nights from this team. And the offense is going to be very stagnant again. And it's going to be an issue when you play against high-scoring teams or teams that just kind of know to stack the box against you. So they may have some luck go their way this year, though. Last year, they were number 26 in fumble luck and 32 or 32nd, which was absolute last place, in field goal luck. So maybe you have a little bit of luck go their way on that one. But let's go ahead and move on to the Giants, one of my favorite teams as far as just handicapping and statistics and all that kind of stuff. They were able to avoid third downs beautifully last year, and avoiding third downs is critical. That's just how you keep your drives alive. That's how you eventually get into the red zone, how you keep the trains on time, right? In 2021, they were the second worst team at avoiding third downs. In 2021, that was the year before Brian Daboll took over. Last year with Brian Daboll, they went all the way up to number 6 in third down avoidance. So huge. He went from 31st to 6th with just 1 year. Just coaching. They didn't really bring up anybody. They had cap, issues from the start as soon as they hired Daboll. They didn't bring any major additions, anything like that. Daboll by himself took this team from 31st to 6th in avoiding third downs. And that, again, is huge. Adds up to a lot of wins, and if nothing else, a lot of just possessions. Aside from that, Daboll also went from 32nd to 7th in red zone conversion rate, which, again, huge. In the red zone specifically, if you're not converting and they converted at the absolute worst rate in 2021, you're not scoring points. So to go from last to seventh place is huge. And then again, 1 year just strictly coaching. That's all they changed. He also had the Giants number one in expected points added per all plays, expected points added per pass, and number one in passing success rate. So just huge change in coaching. I've been talking about emphasizing why I like Daboll so much, and the numbers just really play out how great he was. Another stat I just want to touch on real quick. Anytime a team starts within their own 30-yard line, there's a 5.9% chance of scoring points, just any kind of points at all, a 2.2% chance of scoring a touchdown if they don't have an explosive play, and those are really the main two. Now, that is the one area that Brian Daboll did not really increase in. They went from 28th in basically plays of, explosive plays to 25th. And when you make that change, when you are getting explosive plays, you multiply just your odds dramatically. You multiply your odds of getting any points at all by 7.8 times, and you multiply your odds of getting a touchdown by 11.8, almost 12 times, just by simply getting at least one explosive play, and explosive plays any play that's over 15 yards. So that's, again, the one place that they didn't really have more success in with Daboll, but that's something that hopefully in the second year he'll be able to add and kind of improve upon with a guy like Darren Waller. And hopefully Saquon is healthy and he's coming in and he's not going to, sit out and all that kind of stuff. So just that one addition of Darren Waller can definitely help improve that very, very critical statistic. And if he does, you're going to see the Giants continue to improve and be even better than last year, make another playoff run, and just keep the trains running and keep heading in the right direction. Now, the weak link on this team is Daniel Jones. I think, that kind of goes without saying, but he had 6.88 yards per attempt last year, which was good for 30th in the NFL, and he ranked 22nd in success rate. Just not a great quarterback. He's a very short passer. He likes to pass underneath. They had to do a lot of stuff to Saquon and just real short stuff. Some of that could have been personnel. Some of that could have been play calling, but a lot of that is just Daniel Jones, and it's just the way that he likes to play it. I don't think you're going to see anything really dramatically change this year. Even with Darren Waller, it's probably still going to be a lot of underneath stuff. The Giants have a negative rest edge this year as well, -9 rest edge, and they play the toughest schedule of defenses. Just kind of a tough road for them moving forward, but you should see at least some sort of expectation or growth in this upcoming season from that Giants team. Lastly, you have a Jets team the NFL gave huge advantages to in rust advantage and travel time. The Jets are playing 2 games outside of MetLife Stadium throughout the first 9 weeks. So the first 9 weeks of the season, they only leave their stadium twice. Don't be surprised if you see some preseason games and just early season games where the NFL is, giving them some quote unquote help. And it's mainly because they want to create a buzz. They want to create a hype around this team. It's a New York team, big major market. They finally have a marquee quarterback. A lot of really, exciting things should be coming for New York. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see this team just straight out get help from the refs or from the NFL in general, aside from just scheduling. Now, Saleh is 5-0 in preseason games in the 5 games he's coached for the preseason, and I think you're going to see that continue this year. You should see him do really great in the Hall of Fame game. If you didn't hear already, we're taking them to win that Hall of Fame game and to stay under the 33.5 points for the total. Saleh, though, did take his team from 32nd to 6th in defensive efficiency last year, even though they played the number 1 toughest schedule of offenses last year. And then from week 11 onward, the Jets also have 4 advantage spots, all coming against divisional opponents at the end of this year. So we have a lot of different things going well for them. A lot of the early season games not having to travel, a lot of just ways that the NFL's found to help these guys one way or another. And some of it is going to really, really be an advantage for a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who is a little bit older, who maybe doesn't want to travel, who doesn't want to, have to be traveling all over the country. So if these guys have a great preseason, if these guys come out to a great start in the beginning of their season this year, expect that hype train to keep going. Either way, guys, thank you for tuning in with us here. I appreciate you bearing with me through all of these, and hopefully you're learning something. Hopefully you even want to maybe take a look at the Warren Sharp preview book. Uh, Again, check out the affiliates below. I appreciate every view and like and comment and everything. Please comment below if you have any questions or if there's a team you want me to re-go over or maybe dig a little deeper into or anything like that. Any bets you guys have for preseason, for week one, anything like that. I know we've already gone over a lot of our preseason games and week one games. So thank you again. Y'all have a great day, and I will be back soon with the last iteration of this.